Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. As always, I'm joined by Alex and Paula. My name's Rick, and finally, I'm coming to you through the power of fiber optic broadband. I have rejoined civilization, and it is glorious. This week, we're going to talk about what we've beaten, retired, and been playing. We've all got something to talk about this week, so that'll be a nice welcome change from lots and lots of me. We're going to talk about this week our gaming white elephants, so jumping off a little bit from the conversation that we had last week, or a segment of that. And then we'll finish out with a question from the community and everyone's number one expectation from this show.
How long to beat the game? Hey, that was good. Nice.
Listen, monkeys typewriter Shakespeare. Eventually we'll nail one.
Yes, and they'll pound out something.
You know what I mean. Paula, sweet fuse, save me. Paula, sweet fuse, save me.
Oh, sorry.
Paula, sweet fuse, save me.
Okay, so
Paula.
Give me a second to breathe here.
Just the look of complete not understanding, like just staring at us like, what? Sweet fuse? What are you talking about? The game you beat!
yeah. Sorry, like for a moment, like my brain blanked out. And then I saw Rick looking at me, like
that is
because I didn't understand like why no one like was talking.
That is the best.
And then I was like, oh wait, that's why.
Oh, I've gone bright red. I am like a beetroot attached to a human body.
It's okay.
Oh, I am sweet fuse, please.
Okay, let's go. So this week I finished Sweet Fuse. Are you at your side? I've talked about this on my game before, but let me give you a quick rundown of what it is, what to expect, and all that jazz. So you play as Saki Inafune, who is 18, and she goes to the opening event for an amusement park designed by her uncle, who is pretty much Keiji Inafune. It is based on the real person. Well, things go south really quick, and there's this Monokuma-like mascot in the form of a pig that takes over the park, takes the people as hostages, and Saki, alongside 6 other people, have to complete 7 challenges or games in 7 days, and they have 7 hours for each of the games. So they have to save the hostages and keep the pig from blowing up the park. That is the whole premise of the game. It has some Danganronpa-like elements design-wise. Like the design of the UIs, there's something about it that kind of screams Danganronpa, but the overall gameplay is more in line of, or the overall story is more in line with 999.
Okay.
In the sense of you don't have teenagers killing each other, you have a group of people working together to overcome this set of puzzles or challenges. So, gameplay-wise, you have the typical menu-based selections from pretty much every visual novel ever. There's a special kind of selection that I found really silly. There's certain instances where you pretty much can choose whether Saki gets really mad or not, which it is completely silly, but it is a welcome change in the sense of, at the time, most visual novels have these very either patient or no opinion main characters. So Saki getting mad about bullshit and calling out the bullshit, is very good. There's also this section called Explosive Insight that is kind of the one, I don't want to say mini game of the game, but it kind of is, where you reach a point where the team gets kind of stuck on what to do next. So you kind of review a section of whatever instruction you were given, and you can select like 3 keywords. And if one of the keywords is like the correct option you need to look at, then you can progress through the game. That is pretty much all gameplay wise. There's nothing like too complex. And this one is like a lot tamer than other Otome games. And it is also a lot shorter than other Otome games. So it is divided like on 7 routes. Yeah, 7 routes. And the first 3 chapters or stages, as they are called, are common route. And then the later 4 ones are like the common character chapters of each of the routes. So you have like a mid-length common route there. In terms of characters, you don't have like anything too crazy. So no Dang from PSVita or not Toma from Amnesia Memories. That is like the really out there crazy people on Otome games. And overall, I thought the characters were pretty wholesome. Like you have really like a mixed batch of characters that seemingly they have like nothing in common, but there's a subplot that connects them all together. So you have this investigative journalist that is a single parent that is trying to investigate this one incident. You have the detective that is also like looking at this incident that happened a while ago. And then you have people that were either related or were victims of this incident. Like you have like this host/escort kind of character whose parents were involved. You have the idol who was there but was too young to remember. And you have this fortune teller who is like kind of like the mysterious character, but not really. And then you have arguably one of the more well-rounded characters was chatting, or how they call him, a hikikomori, because he pretty much stayed indoors all day and pretty much refused to go outside if it wasn't like video game related.
Oh, is that the herbivore thing?
No.
No, ignore me. Okay. Well, what's a hikikomori or whatever it was that you said?
Hikikomori is like a person who is unemployed and doesn't like go out of the house.
They're the shut-ins,
has
right?
like the chat-ins.
Oh, yeah, I thought that literally translates as herbivore. Like that's a cultural thing that's going. I think we are talking about anyway. Yeah. I think we are talking about the same thing, but I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I just hear every word like in another context, so please no. But yeah, overall the characters are a lot tamer, not a lot of crazy stuff going on. They have obviously like their backstory explained a little bit, but it's nothing like too out of the ordinary, except for the one guy who is like I don't want to say the canon route, but the one who is behind everything. And I thought like that one route that was supposed to wrap everything up was disappointing. It was by far the weakest of the routes. And I would recommend people to play this game if they want something different from an Otome game. And if they only wish to play like a couple of routes or not the full game, that's okay. Though if they want like to get like as close as possible to the mystery, to the answer of the mystery, I would recommend Subera Chito's route, that is a detective, and Ayumu Chirabe. Like arguably those are the ones that you could play and get like a pretty good picture of what happened that caused the entire thing. So yeah, that's Sweet's views at your side. How
I wanted to add a little addendum because I was curious about this herbivore thing in hikikomori. So here's a little fun thing for our listeners. Herbivore is different than hikikomori because a herbivore is a concept in Japan that describes men who basically aren't they're not interested in the like traditional conception of masculinity, and like the concept of like getting into a relationship, having a family. It's not their priority in life, right? Like they're usually seen as not being interested in the idea of like a company life, not really pursuing romantic relationships necessarily, maybe like having a quieter, kind of less busy life, like go take photos, things like this. And some otakus can be herbivores, right? Like the ones who decide to go in, but that's not everyone, right? And hikikomori is very different, where it's like they literally they stay inside. The most that they want to do to go outside is like go to the corner store to get something to eat, come in, right? Like it's much more similar to the idea of a shut-in, right, than necessarily someone who's just choosing a
because there's no romantic component. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
I concur.
I
concur.
Cool.
So yeah, that's all from me.
Nice. Well, why don't I jump in there since I slid in anyway?
Yep. Go ahead.
So I beat 2 games this week. I beat Picross S, Genesis, and Master System Edition already. I was the first person to log it on How Long to Beat.
Speedrun the shit out of that.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, this is the first time that I'm like the first to like put a game that's like, that people will actually complete, not like that random itch.io game or something that, you know what I mean?
Watch your mouth.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like I've been the first to input like certain, itch.io things, but or like one of them. But yeah, I beat, but see, like what I did is like, I'd say I beat like main plus extras. I beat the main Picross and then the clip Picross, because clip Picross is really fun because you're building out like a big image, and the 3 images that you build out in this one are like classic Sega games, and like it's like kind of like their title screens, which is just really cool. And you unlock them like as you beat the main Picross ones, but they also have Mega Picross and Color Picross, but I just don't find those appeal as much. And I think I mentioned this before. There's a lot of recycling of the puzzles from the main Picross in those 2 modes. So it's kind of like, what's the point? And it almost to me feels like even they're like, listen, people are coming here for the Picross. If you really like these other 2 forms, you can do it. But like, we know why you're here. You know what I mean? And I'm like, respect. They're like, we're not putting all this effort into like another ton of these freaking puzzles just for like 2 folks to beat them. So yeah, really, really love it. I don't know. I love this version of Picross. Like if they make more of these, I will be buying them 100% right away. The first few, like the 10x10 ones or like 5x5s, they're a little sillier because it's more like, here's a stop sign from a game, or here's a power up from a game, right? Because it's such a small puzzle that you can't really make artwork. But when you start getting to the 15x15s, then it's like it's full on pixel art of like, profiles of a bunch of different characters from the games and whatnot. And so that's where like I think the real joy is. And then actually the last like section are like the 20x15, and those are like some really cool like action poses and stuff from the games. So highly recommend it, even if you don't like super know Genesis games. Like I didn't really, but even I was recognizing stuff, a lot of Phantasy Star, a lot of Sonic, a lot of Streets of Rage, and some more obscure ones as well in there. So anyway, great game, highly recommended. I mean, these ones are hard to rate. Like I would basically put this as like a 10 pretty much, because like, do you know what like it's perfect at what it does.
But it's like subtract 8 points if you don't like Picross.
Exactly. Like if you don't like Picross, it's basically a 0, because like what would be the point of it? You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna offer you anything new. Although I guess if you don't like Picross but you love Sega, maybe you get 1 extra point in there.
Even then, that's a fucking hard sell.
Exactly. But like I said, they're so cheap. You like them, you're gonna like them. It's like playing Sudoku or something. So next up, I beat Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which yeah, this overall I really liked this game. It's hard because in playing this, I confirmed something that I sort of suspected. I much prefer Phoenix Wright games over Layton games. Layton games are fun. Their stories are kind of quirky and enjoyable. Their mysteries... And this is the sort of hard point. And I know, Rick, because you kind of feel this way a little bit about Phoenix Wright, and I get this. And I sort of feel this way a little bit of Layton, where it's like, you kind of know what like, even when I was playing this game, I was like, I got a feeling I generally know what the twist is going to be in this, because like all the Layton games kind of do these like wild, fanciful things in them. And then there's some kind of, Sherlock Holmes.
Well, here's the thing. Like,
yeah.
I absolutely love Layton far more than I do Phoenix Wright. That's well documented. The first 3 Layton games are basically the same twist 3 times with slightly different window dressing. And then 4, 5, and 6, they try and do more with the plot, but it makes it a bit of a mess, and the puzzles are kind of crappy. So, like, absolutely accept that criticism, despite the fact that I think the Ace Attorney games are horrifically inconsistent internally and an absolute nightmare to try and take the plot seriously. But that's that's a whole other thing.
That's also part of it too. Like, I think the reason I love Phoenix Wright so much is that, like, I'm not trying to take it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you play them, it's more just like for like the fun of it. But I do know what you mean too. In this one, I think the problem mostly lies in the fact that it's more of a Layton game than it is a Phoenix Wright game. Like in Phoenix Wright games usually, and I think Great Ace Attorney sort of breaks from this a little bit, which I'm actually slightly concerned about. But anyway, they're like, it's usually like individual cases, right? And you've got this kind of like, you do one case, and sometimes a case or 2 are going to relate to each other, and there's a storyline that's kind of weaving its way through, but it's very individual in the cases. Which makes the cases themselves really fun. And there's the investigating, and there's finding that out, which is really kind of great. And that's something I actually really loved about the Ace Attorney games, is I actually really enjoyed leaving the courtroom and like going around and investigating. And you kind of get that in this, but of course it's more puzzles and whatnot. And so the problem is that like the big final court case, it actually sort of resolves itself before it resolves itself, in the sense that the stakes get lowered really suddenly and abruptly. Okay. And so the stakes are like quite high in this game for quite a while, and it's really awesome. But then because it's a Layton game, it kind of has to pull the twist. And so I'm not going to try to like spoil things here, but if you're like really want to play this game, I don't know, there might be something. But I don't know, if you don't go into a Layton game not knowing there's a twist, like, dude. So anyway, it's just a moment in the final case where suddenly it feels like you're just kind of like, oh, and now we have to do this thing to like get the Layton mystery solved. I'm no longer doing a court case. I'm just wrapping up a game, which was like a little disappointing. But overall, it's satisfying as a crossover, and it's incredible that it's happened, right? Because like the way this game came about is like really interesting, because Shu Yamaguchi, who like does the am I saying his name right? I hope I am.
That's the music, guys, isn't it?
No, that's 13 Sentinels. Shu something else. Ace Attorney creator. What's his name again? It is Shu something, but what is it though? What is it? It starts with a Y, I think. Shu Takumi. That's it. Shu Takumi. Shu Yamaguchi. 13 Sentinels being great. So anyway, Shu Takumi was working on Ghost Trick, right, at the time that this was happening. So Ace Attorney was kind of on like a bit of a hiatus, and the level 5 creator of the Layton creator had like always really wanted to do a crossover between them, because like that's Akihiro Hino. That's the guy who created Layton, and like he had always wanted to like do a crossover with Ace Attorney, because he was actually inspired by Ace Attorney to create Layton, right? Like that was one of the big inspirations of it. And so when he approached Capcom initially, Shu Takumi like wasn't interested, but like they were going to make a game, but Shu was like, that's fine, like they can make a thing, but like I'm not interested in like being involved in the actual game, right? Like wasn't opposed to the game being made, just like, we're gonna Ghost Trick, had his own stuff that he was dealing with. And then it was like later as development was going on.
Ghost Trick, sorry, go on.
Yeah,
sorry,
no, I know, yeah. And so this was also a problem, because as Ghost Trick was happening, they wanted more Ace Attorney games to happen, but like Ghost Trick was happening, right? So you're like, like what do we do? And Capcom's like, can we have more Ace Attorney? Like he's busy. And then Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright is happening. And so eventually Shu actually went to see the work they were doing, and they were having a really hard time matching the styles of them. There's some awesome concept art in the game itself of Layton in the Phoenix Wright style. And I'm actually like very sad that they didn't go with that because he looked dope. He's like this like tall, like kind of burly, like fucking Professor Layton that I was like, dude, that's dope. I see why they didn't, because it would be such a strange random departure. And like the one that they went for is more of like, because like Layton in the Phoenix Wright game, he's a bit taller than he is in the other ones, so it was a good marriage in the end. It worked out. But Shu Takumi actually came to see what they were working on, and he started getting like kind of interested in this, and he was like, oh, and so like eventually he was like, I'm gonna come on board, and like they were like, great, you can write it. And like he had help in writing it, so there was a writing team, and usually he's the sole writer, but there was a writing team for this one, and you can sort of tell sometimes that this was written a little bit by multiple people, not necessarily in a bad way. It's just that like there are moments where I'm like, oh, interesting. And like I think the big climax of this game, from what I understand, was already kind of decided when he came in on the writing. So anyway, huge collaboration. It's insane that it happened anyway. But because he was doing that, sorry, we're going to do a little bit of a history on here in this, but I saw some really great stuff on this, and I think it's really fascinating. Like as he was doing that, Capcom wanted Ace Attorney to go ahead. They wanted another one. But like the problem is that like he's working on Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which went through a really long development period because it was having a lot of struggles to get made, because like, it was 2 freaking studios put together to make this, and it was the first time Phoenix Wright was being put into 3D, so like that was a whole freaking thing. So the B team on like Phoenix Wright, so like there's like their A team who is making Phoenix Wright, and there's like their B team. The A team was basically making Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, and the B team made Miles Edgeworth Investigations, right? They ended up making that game, and then they made a sequel to that game. And then this game was taking so goddamn long because remember, Ghost Trick was happening right before he went in on this, so that Miles Edgeworth's time, Phoenix Wright's having Miles Edgeworth. So eventually they just gave the B team the next Phoenix Wright game, which is the historically divisive one. And so, because like it basically abandons everything that was happening with Apollo Justice in the 4th game, because the 5th game kind of just abandons that and goes on its own way. And Shu Takumi apparently had plans anyway. And so it's like the 2 teams flipped, because then Shu Takumi, when it finished, was like, can I make the Great Ace Attorney? They were like, Capcom's like, okay, sure. So now the B team's making the mainline Phoenix Wright games, and Shu Takumi's just doing whatever the fuck he wants, which like I guess is great. And it's fascinating because, and I think for people who are going into the Great Ace Attorney, you really should play Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, because from what I understand, I'll talk about this more when I start playing the game. From what I understand, the Great Ace Attorney is kind of like the ideas that Shu Takumi was experimenting with in Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, fully explored. Like the multiple juror systems, the idea of there being a much larger plot that goes over a longer period of time. Because I think, from what I even understand, the cases are far more interlinked in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles than they are in like previous Ace Attorney games. And I mean, look, it's even set in London at times, right? Like there's like, you got Herlock Sholmes or whatever, which is Layton, right? Like that's just Professor Layton. I mean, it's basically because Professor Layton's Sherlock Holmes, right? Like, I mean, that's basically who he is, and his Watson is little buddy. But I mean, not that directly. I don't want to like curb on their creativity, because like they did a lot of excellent things with him. But it's that concept, Yeah, thing. Right?
And it's beyond the scope of this, mainly because I don't remember all the details. But people should go and have a look, because that Herlock Sholmes is basically the reason that they're able to dodge the IP minefield and get that thing localized at all. Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, like one of the interesting things in Japan, it is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
but I don't know like how the license is like around the world on the Sherlock Holmes.
Arthur Conan Doyle's estate are pretty litigious, and although the film rights are loose, which is why you've seen the Robert Downey Jr. version and the BBC versions of various other things, certain stories and certain aspects of the literary works still aren't in the public domain yet. And so that caused a problem. But Herlock Sholmes is an established character in their own right. And between that, the whole parody thing, there's enough leeway for them to be able to do it without fear of lawyers.
I'm sorry. Like the whole Herlock Sholmes thing happened because of, I think it was like I forgot the name of the author, but there was this one book of Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes, and because copyright, that had to be changed to Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
right.
it just and then like future works which you will just stuck with the like parody name, let's say.
Yeah.
The takeaway message is that modern IP law fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's so stupid, especially for Sherlock Holmes, which most of Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain, but some of the, like, when Sherlock Holmes is old and stuff, that isn't. So anyway, it's that family. Anyway,
Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, so Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright is really it's very fun. I don't recommend playing it unless you've played at least one Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton game, because then you're not going to appreciate it quite as much. And there's lots of little jokes in there, and they have like 11 free DLC episodes that you can download when you're all done. They just released these like special episodes that are kind of fourth wall breaky, and like they continue after the game has finished, but they're not like official story. It's more like, it's like they even joke. They're like, yeah, there'll be more of these special episodes with puzzles that we dropped. I mean, new puzzles for you to play. Like, you just like, but it's like
Love
basically
that.
saying, yeah, it's just all the puzzles that were cut from the game. They've just put into these special episodes and like, have fun. And it even gets like, the special episodes even sort of talk about the development of the game and stuff too. Like it's really neat. Like, it's not something you definitely have to play, but like they're not super long, 15 minutes maybe an episode. But the fact that they're free and you can just download them all right when you're done, I was like, that's pretty cool and pretty nice. Anyway, that's
For now, because the eShop's going soon.
Well, they're not on the eShop. They're directly through the game.
Even better.
Yeah. So you can just, it just goes right through it. I think, I think honestly, I feel like it's actually just, you just have to like hit something online and it just unlocks it. Like, I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's like, well, no, because you would have downloaded it into it. But if you download it from the eShop, they're probably already in. I don't know, whatever. All I know is it didn't download anything. It just kind of appeared for me like very fast. Maybe they're super small, but I don't know. I have a downloaded version, right? If you have a cart version, it's probably different. But anyway, were you going to say something, Paula? Oh, no, sorry. I thought I heard you like interject a second ago. I'm wrong.
Sweet views, save me.
Actually, I'd say Castlevania saved me. All right, go ahead, Rick.
Castlevania saved me.
So my playthrough, or my completion rather, this week was a replay of the worst GBA Castlevania game, but still a very good game, Castlevania Circle of the Moon, a game Igarashi disliked so much that he made it non-canon. You can tell they were still sort of finding their feet. The magic system's kind of bollocks. The way that the sort of post-boss special moves are integrated is a little bit janky. But the point is that playing it is still fun. The level design is still excellent, and that's one of the hallmarks of all of the 6 GBA and DS Castlevanias, is just that they're really well put together from a map perspective. And I really enjoyed my time with it, for the most part. The final boss is a bit of a joke. This time I played on original hardware, but previously I played on an emulator on my PSP Go. So in my original playthrough, I didn't realize how much slowdown there is in Circle of the Moon. There is actually a real surprisingly high amount of slowdown in that game. And not the kind of slowdown that's helpful in something like Bangai, like the kind of slowdown that really hampers your ability to play and succeed. And it always seems to be at the times when you really need those reaction times the most. So, and again, we come back to this Metroidvania issue of, it's pretty good, I just can't recommend it. I can't even recommend it over the other Igavanias. Like, I would tell just about everybody to play Aria, then Dawn of Sorrow, then maybe play Harmony of Dissonance, although that one's a bit divisive in and of itself, but definitely then go on to play Portrait of Ruin, and in my personal opinion, the best of the bunch, Order of Ecclesia. But yeah, there's just no reason, unless you've already played all of those, to go and play Circle of the Moon. And you'll be able to tell that it's not as good, but you'll still have a good time with it. And I would never want someone to bounce off that and then miss out on infinitely better and exceptional sort of classic genre staples.
Yeah, I also feel
on
like
those systems.
I was gonna say, I also feel like this is one of the ones where if you start with like one of the best, like you mentioned, Arya Sorrow, you're gonna like the rest if you like that one, you know, like at least to an extent. So it's like you might as well play a real good one first.
And the other fun wrinkle is because Araya and Dawn follow immediately on from each other. It gives you an opportunity, like you say, to get an idea of if it's the right kind of thing for you. But also, the other benefit of doing it that way is that because you've got the duology that goes from GBA to DS, you also get a feel for not only if you like the genre and that implementation generally, but also for how the DS versions differ in terms of what the extra buttons mean for you, in terms of having that map on the second screen, little stuff like that. And then you can sort of have a feel for that when you go forwards and backwards kind of thing. But it was still good. Only took me about 5 hours to replay through. Nice little sort of warm-up lap for my Game Boy Micro, which is always fun. And yeah, it was real good. 2 games that are less real good, because we're going to roll into retirements next. And as with last week, that's just me. 2 retirements this week, both not dislikes, kind of just tepid impression type things. So I played some more of Inferno shortly after we finished recording last week's episode. That game has horrific checkpointing and some kind of cruel design. So you can kind of have one without the other, but when you have both, they just sort of brace against each other, if that's the right terminology. And, for a little itch thing that is just you're guiding a wisp around the screen and you have a dash attack, like that, the lack of polish and the lack of content. Like I'd had a go, it was fine. Didn't really feel compelled to push through in the slightest. The other one was Front Mission Gun Hazard for the SNES. Now, the game, the Wanzer gameplay, the 2D side-scrolling stuff, that was pretty cool. And graphically, it's incredible, which you'd hope so, because it came out in 1995 for the Super Nintendo. By then, they knew how that worked. The problem is that gameplay made up maybe 20% of the hour that I spent with that game. There is a lot of like front mission politicking that meant less than nothing to me. And at a time when I'm playing some beefy story-based games, I did not need that in my life. The other wrinkle, and I think this really was the death knell, is that game must have pushed the SNES quite hard because my PSP emulator can't run it. My PSP emulator on Vita can't run it. And my normal go-to SNES emulator couldn't run it. So I had to run it in BSNES. And it just becomes the PC problem then, where it's just a bit more of a faff to get set up. Sort of can't be arsed. It's an extra piece of friction. It's an extra sort of roadblock between me and playing the game. So I've put it in the retired. Realistically, it's one that I would like to come back to at some point when I'm a bit more receptive to the story, or maybe a bit more willing to just try and skip through it all. But you can't even really skip through it all because a lot of it's quasi-integrated into the levels, where you'll get to a section near the end of the level, and then the big boss has appeared on screen, and you can still move your Wanzer left and right, but there's this text box that slowly advances. It's like, well, I can't just skip this cutscene. I'm sort of stuck living through it. So just on the whole, it's just a whole lot of nope for me right now, unfortunately. So it's one of those. So let's move swiftly on to what we're playing at the moment. And I would quite like, Alex, to hear how your time with the Ascent is going.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny. The Ascent, just the other day, I was like, maybe I should retire the Ascent. I don't really know if I want to play, because I wasn't really in the mood to but wait, I was like, it wasn't really in the mood to play something on my Xbox and stuff, and I was like, I don't know, and I was sort of confused where I was, and then yesterday I was like, I had some time at the end of the day. I had kind of done all my work for the day, and I was like, maybe I'll try it again, and then put it on, and I was like, fuck, this game slaps. You just forget until you start playing it, and the music, the soundtrack in this game is so fucking good. It is just this bassy, anything you would imagine from some sort of cyberpunkish sort of game. It's just got that stuff going on, and you're going through shooting blowing enemies to fucking high heaven, and you've got these excellent cybernetic upgrades. I've got one that's just this super punch that basically just blasts through all the enemies in front of me. I have another one that it like infects all your enemies, and then when you like shoot them and kill them, they balloon up and explode. Like hurting all the enemies around them and shit. And I was just like, yeah, this game's dope. But I think what I've learned with this game is like, you might as well just play the main story, because I was sort of like, I've been collecting the side quests as I go, but like, it's, at least at the moment, it's not all that clear. Like, their map's not great, but they have a really good like on-screen indicator of where to go. Like, you press up and this like red line shoots out as if like you're like, you know, cybernetic, something that like shows you where to go. So like, it's not easy to get lost. But then if you have like a side quest that's telling you to go to a specific sort of area, I've been finding it like a little intuitive to like figure out like, where is that in terms of this whole world, just because it's a pretty complex kind of world they've made. I'm getting a bit better at it, and I'm like sort of figuring it out right now. But yeah, it's really good though. I do recommend playing it, but I can see why it's gotten that like sort of 75-ish mark, because I think it's one of these things where I was like, this is super fun, but there's just a few things that are like maybe a little unintuitive, but they're not so bad that they stop you from having like a lot of fun with it. You know, it's just not like some kind of like perfectly polished thing. Like I've just noticed like little pop-ins sometimes, not of like graphics, but like for instance, when I go onto like a train and fast travel, sometimes all of the it's like I've gotten in too quick, and like sometimes the like character assets will be like frozen in their default position, which will be like standing, something like that, and then suddenly they just pop into their position, and it's almost like I'm like ahead of the game a little bit. So I've just noticed little tiny things like that, but I haven't had any like crashes or any game like big bugs or anything, which I think is a bigger problem on like on PC and like Xbox One and stuff. But on the Series X, at least, it runs very, very smooth. Yeah, so it's a good game. It's also hilarious because I just got an auto-powered rocket launcher that you can, if you press LT, you can like do the thing where you bring your gun up, and if you're crouching, it puts the gun to the side. And so I have this huge rocket launcher, and if I crouch, it just tilts the rocket launcher to the side. And I'm like, this is so stupid, and I love it. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm doing with the Ascent. I'm still not far in it, but I'm like level 10 or something like that. Playing Fire Emblem, the Blazing Blade, or just Fire Emblem, for us Westerners here, and really loving this. I'm on the 22nd chapter, I think, so I'm more than halfway through the game. I can't remember exactly how many chapters there are, but I'm pretty sure I'm coming near the end of it here. I think I'll probably beat it in like a week or so. It's such a perfect handheld game because like those missions are just the right amount of time, and I actually find that I have a hard time. I can't play multiple missions in a row because, you know, like when you're about to enter into mission, you got to make sure that all your equipment's right. You got to like think about like, who do I want, do the formation and like strategy. I mean, you don't have to. You can just fucking go to town, but you're gonna die. So like, I find that takes a lot out of me. So like, I like to do that once, play the map, finish, and they really set it up to let you do that nicely, because it's like, you know, save at the end of a chapter, you're good. Turn it off, come back again later. So I've really been enjoying playing this over a longer period of time, because it's just it's why like it's so perfect for the Game Boy Advance, and I think it's also why these Fire Emblem games were so perfect for handhelds. But yeah, enjoying that. I've also been replaying The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. I'm already halfway through the game because I know this game so well now. Like I was playing it and I was like, I know where to go. Yep, got it. Great. And I love it. I fucking love it. It is so good. The remake is so gorgeous and just it's beautiful. It's well done. It is insane that there's slowdown sometimes, but
it's unforgivable. It's a fucking Game Boy game.
Yeah,
I know it's pretty, but it's a Game Boy game. No, not but. It's a Game Boy game. It should not be slowing down.
No, I know
if you're remastering a game and it runs worse, that's not a remaster. That's not how that works.
But it's not a remaster. That's the thing. That's the thing that you have to keep in mind. No, I know you go, huh, but it's really not a remaster. This is a like complete remake. Like it's just like there's no. Even when you look at the original, like Link's Awakening, there is nothing similar in terms of the way these games look, even how they function.
So remake it slightly less pretty. I refuse to give that a pass.
Yeah, well, you haven't played it, so.
No, that's true. Not yet. Not yet.
And this has come from a guy who's replaying it, so I'm telling you, it's good. The slowdowns, it's mostly, it never happens when you're fighting. Like, I've never had slowdown happen when I'm actually like engaged and stuff. When I see it occur is when sometimes when the scenes shift. So when you're like shifting through a new area, you'll occasionally notice a little thing that's happening there. So I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I also think that when you start to play it, you recognize like where it's happening and why it's happening. But that's also because it's the fucking Switch. I'm sort of joke too, but I'm like, this game's going to be even better when you get your Steam Deck with the Switch emulator. This game will be perfect. It'll run perfectly fine. I guarantee there will be no
I
problems.
literally was about to say that when you said it.
And you might as well,
that's
because there's
amazing.
no reason you have to play this on a Switch. Like, there's no like, motion style, nothing. But anyway, I love this game a lot. I'm also playing System Shock, the enhanced edition on the PC. This is a game I'd always meant to be getting to, talking about gaming away elephants later, but System Shock is always a game that I meant to get to. And, playing it's interesting. Like, it actually makes me appreciate BioShock a lot more, because System Shock is an obtuse, insane game. And I say that with love, but like, particularly the original edition. I saw Mandalore Gaming. So he did a video on System Shock 2, and he had done one on System Shock before, and I saw that come up, and I was like, fuck, I should really go and play that System Shock. So I went to watch his, and he comments on how it's like the original System Shock is like playing a game where your controller is a T1 calculator, because it's fucking nuts. There's so many batteries. There's no mouse free look, right? Like, you imagine when you play a first person shooter.
Not without a mod, yeah.
Yeah, not without a mod in the original, but in the enhanced edition, it's built in. There's a button, it lets you do free look. Holy shit, that improves everything. Even with the improvements, System Shock it's okay. There's some stuff that's a little weird. Like, I'm starting to get like a touch frustrated, and I've only got down to the second level, and there's like 8 or so of them. And I'm just getting a little bit to the point where I'm like, this stupid fucking thing killed me again. Okay, here we go. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm willing to kind of grind it out on this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that. The music's also, look, this is an old game, and the music can be a little grating sometimes. It is probably phenomenal for its time, but it's a little and like, just, like that kind of like very electronic, and you're just kind of like, at first you're like, you're grooving to it, and then you're like, oh, it loops. And just actually, apparently I'm
just gonna be there 2 hours in, just like
well, there's a really sophisticated thing they did with it, apparently, that no one noticed because it was so subtle. The music changes depending on Shodan. Anyway, something with Shodan. But anyhow, for those who don't know, System Shock is like, it's this game where you're playing as this, like, you're this hacker who hacked into this space station. It's like 2072. There's this AI in the space station, and the military was like, I want you to unshackle this AI. And so you do that, and they offer to give you this like military implant, but you have to go into a medical induced coma for 6 months for it to like properly go in. And then when you wake up, the Citadel station, the station you're on, everyone's dead, and there's just like mutants and cyborgs all over, and the AI runs the station. And so you're basically in a fight to destroy the AI. And so like the chief of the gameplay is actually going around the levels, finding security cameras and like big security nodes to reduce Shodan's control. Shodan's the name of the AI, control of the level that you're on. And you're finding things. It's kind of a Metroidvania, honestly, in some weird ways. Like, you'll go back and whatnot. There's a good map. The map, one thing that is super fucking dope on this is that on the map, you can click and you can actually type onto the map, and it'll stay there on your auto map. Yeah, so like if you find something, and I only realized this partway through the level, but I was like, oh, I gotta fucking use this more often. So if you come to something and you're like, I can't do that, you can literally just pull your map up and go, like, I don't know, secret, or like whatever, like something is here. Type whatever you want on it, which is just, I haven't figured out if I can delete these things though. But anyway, it's like, you probably can, I just don't know.
Blows my mind that people still get maps wrong in games. Like, there's so many good examples now. And for people listening, if you don't want to sort of play through the quote unquote enhanced Nightmare, Night Dive Studios are currently remaking the thing relatively faithfully. So that's well worth a look. It
seems quite faithful, yeah. Hopefully it's coming soon. So Night Dive did the enhanced edition as well. I think it's worth trying, because man, it's like $1 or $2 on GOG, I think. So like, fuck it, might as well. you know, and yeah, so I don't know. I'm enjoying it. It's kind of the birth of the audio log. These are funny though, because this is before people who knew what the fuck they were doing were recording dialogue in games. And so like the dialogues are like, one of them is like talking about how like, I think so like one guy just watched his buddy get turned into a cyborg, like murdered and violently turned into a cyborg. And he's like, I watched him. He was killed and turned into a cyborg. I think he's outside right now. Oh no. You're like, oh my god. Like
They turned him into a cyborg, and then they're gonna turn me into a cyborg.
Yeah, it's like,
Oh my god.
honestly, yeah. It's like,
Makes you wonder if the guy is already a cyborg or something like that.
seriously. And but it's like,
Watch out, fellow humans.
Yeah, it's so endearing in a weird way though. Like, you know, it's so bad, but at the same time you're just kind of like, this is kind of like, it's just kind of fun and like ridiculous. So yeah, but the reason I say too to appreciate BioShock is that I feel like BioShock has taken the sort of style of System Shock and whatnot and made it like understandable to a much wider audience and much like larger group. Like the fact that you can use it on a gamepad, I think makes a huge difference, because I think even System Shock 2, which I will get to eventually, even that one, I think like unless you're kind of seasoned gamer, there's a lot of shit going on in these games. And they don't explain any of it. So like I was discovering things in this game. I was like, oh, I can do that? Holy shit. Oh, I can do that? Holy shit. Like all this random stuff, and like you get all these upgrades and things as you go along. And anyway, interesting game. But that's it for me. I've been talking way too long. Why don't one of you two take over?
Oh,
I feel like I've talked a lot as well. Paula, jump in for us.
okie dokie. So I've been playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the So I've been playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Shocker. And I haven't been making like a lot of progress because I really wanted to have Sweet Feast like out of the way so I could like play BUSTAFELLOWS and give it like more of my time there. But yeah, like same old, couple of quirk seats here and there. Nothing like too crazy. Pokemon LeafGreen, I've been trying to find its stupid Tauros, and I swear it is like it is really, really making my patience run out at this point. Because I've seen like
Savari Zone.
Yeah, I've seen 5
God.
Tauroses. All 5 of them ran away. But I really want to complete the Pokédex, so here we are.
You poor thing.
I've seen worse. Like in Pokemon Sword and Shield, the fucking Cursula didn't like appear unless there was like a certain weather condition, and weather is random in that game. And I swear I waited for like 2 weeks and I never had that weather condition. And then I said like, fuck it, I ain't completing this Pokédex. And so yeah, that's Pokemon Leaf for me. Luigi's Mansion, I pretty much started exploring the new floors. Nothing too crazy yet. Still pretty good game. I really like how with the menus and stuff they went like full Virtual Boy, all red and black and shades of red in the middle.
Nice.
It is a nice touch. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I've been playing against my boyfriend now. And yeah, I forgot Super Smash Bros. Ultimate could get like super intense like that. And finally, I'm finally back playing BUSTAFELLOWS on the Nintendo Switch. And I know I said I can't really like talk about the story, so I'm gonna go like really, really vague with this one. But I finally arrived to the route split, and I'm currently on Crow's route, which I'm a little scared about because after you finish each chapter, they show you a preview of the next chapter, kind of like in a TV show. And I saw things. I'm scared. And So yeah, like that's BUSTAFELLOWS for me right now. Really liking the direction the game is going for, and how they are pretty much nailing like the serious moments, the more dramatic moments, and like the action and the overall writing on and descriptions of the scene. And I'm really excited to see what's next with this one. That's pretty much it for from me. Like, my time just went to Switch Fuse this week, so Rick, take it away.
Okay. This week in playing for me has very much been characterized by handhelds. So,
You say that like it's ever different.
well, there is some context to this. So,
Oh.
obviously, I'm still playing Vagrant Story on Vita natively, and that is still very specifically of its era, for better and for worse, but still, interesting and compelling and engaging in various ways so far. Wargroove, now that I have broadband, I've been able to take advantage of a little piece of homebrew Vita software called Moonlight, which tricks the NVIDIA Shield code into thinking that the Vita is a Shield device and allows you to stream your gameplay straight to it. And holy shit, is that game infinitely more fun on a handheld. Like, I've alluded to it a few times that I'd like it more if I had a Switch copy. It's great on Vita. It's way more fun. Like, my enjoyment of that game genuinely skyrocketed being able to play it in handheld form. And the game was good before. It's just the fact that I had to boot up the PC, I had to be sat at the PC, yada 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 yada. And now I am freed to play it that way.
You've been freed from your shackles.
Simultaneously on Vita number 3. So we're talking Vagrant Story on my OLED Vita. We're talking Wargroove on my hacked black Slim Vita. On my red clean Slim Vita, I have been taking advantage of PS4 Remote Play to play some more of Root Film in bed instead of downstairs where the TV is, thanks to the magical power of broadband. And Root Film's really good. It's really, really sinking its claws in, because the mystery's sort of slowly starting to unravel. I've got access to the second character now. It's all played out in different chapters, and the game's charm is shining through the more and more I go through, both in its attention to detail, in terms of the setting, in terms of the history, in terms of character development, in terms of the way it sets up its little mini mysteries as they go, but also in terms of the character interactions. Max and Magari, I think I mention every time I talk about this game, but their like back and forth is just incredible. It's very realistic. It's very engaging, and it breathes life into what is already a pretty cool kind of murder mystery, but also unique enough to be its own separate thing, VN. And I'm having a great time with it. I tried to play the next game. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Kine, Kine, via Moonlight, but Moonlight doesn't seem to play very well with the Epic Game Store. So I tried it a couple of times, managed to get like 2 minutes gameplay out, and then it would just disconnect and it'd be a problem. But Kine's excellent. So it is a puzzle game. It's like a block moving type puzzle game, but the quirk is that you are different musical instruments, and you can sort of move the parts of the musical instruments to manipulate yourself in space. So there is an accordion type thing, for example, that I was playing some of the most recent levels, and by pressing the spacebar, you switch between having 2 wide parts out and having 1 long accordion part out of the back. And so you have to manipulate those, both in terms of what they can allow your core character to reach, but also in terms of how they can move you around the space by pushing against walls and what have you. There's a real cool, like, 20s, 30s jazz vibe to it all. The soundtrack's lovely. The characters are oddly charming. I feel like this is a puzzle game that I might actually finish, which, if you're a regular listener of this show, you'll know is very, very high praise indeed. And then finally, I have started the Banner Saga, specifically the Android release. And I'm not really far enough to know how I feel about it per se. But what I can say is that on an OLED phone screen, the art for that game pops. It is a real aesthetic marvel to behold, particularly in sort of the downtime moments where you've just got this massive parade of people and caravans sort of moving as small blobs through these enormous vistas. It gives it a real sense of scale. It's like a living art piece. It's wonderful. The gameplay is good so far. It doesn't feel all that different to me, but I have experience with the factions sort of multiplayer version that they did, so it feels familiar, but also not especially novel. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good or a bad yet. I haven't found the combat too difficult yet, which is good because I'm not sure I necessarily have the patience for any kind of difficulty from a combat in this setting. Whether that's me or whether that's the game, I just kind of want to experience the battles and see where the story goes. I feel like that's the main draw for me with this game, but we'll see how it goes along. So far, so good. That's all of my playing. Shall we jump straight on to our topic this week? So last week, for anyone who listened to our discussions about backlogs, we briefly talked about games in our backlogs that have been neglected, our gaming white elephants, if you will. And while we were talking between ourselves, between the last recording and this, we decided that that'd be a cool thing to dig into a little bit further, talk a bit more about games that are gathering dust in our backlogs, games that we need to get back to, maybe series we want to start. And there's one that I want to sort of lead off with, and I feel like this is the big daddy of like scary backlog games, Disgaea.
Absolutely.
Oh God! Yeah, Disgaea.
No, yep, it's just clicked in.
I tried playing Disgaea on the Switch before, and I'm like, nope.
So this game's on like all of the things now.
Yeah.
In the spirit of this week's episode, a brief history lesson, Disgaea started as a PS2 game, ported by then the tiny Nipponichi software, and that game very much made them what they are today because it sold fucking gangbusters and like financed everything they did for the next decade. We're now on the 6th Disgaea entry, not counting all the various re-releases. The original Disgaea can be played on PSP, on DS, which is the version that I own, on PS3, on PS4, on PS5, on Switch, on PC, and if you want to pay £32 for a 15-year-old game, you can even buy it for Android as well. Which, if that game was like a quarter of that price, I would have absolutely jumped on it like a fat boy on cake. But there was zero chance of me paying £32 for a game I already know on DS, where it's better because you've got the split screen anyway. It's one of those, like, the core story probably wouldn't take that long to beat, but because you know that it's geared towards like getting everything to level 9,999, yes, you heard that right, listeners at home, that's 4 9s. It just feels very scary.
Yeah. Actually, I'm looking at how long to beat like right now, and
shameless plug.
Plug. And especially the third one, Disgaea 3, Absence of Justice, has 424 hours for 100%.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
I think that's the one with the most hours, but Disgaea 2, Disgaea 5, and the others like don't really like behind that much.
Yeah, and this is part of the problem as well. So off the back of what little I played and enjoyed of the original Disgaea DS, I have since procured a copy of Disgaea 2 for PSP, copies of Disgaea 3 and 4 for Vita, a copy of Disgaea D2, which is like a sequel to the original Disgaea with that cast of characters, for the PS3, and that's 5 Disgaea games. I haven't even like made any kind of dent in the first one. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I have
I think you're never going to beat them all.
I have your right to judge you because I have like all the Disgaea games save for 6, and I haven't even started the first one.
We have problems, is what I'm hearing.
Problems.
I see. I actually did try Disgaea, so I think it was Disgaea 5 maybe on the Switch. It was like one of the ones that was like when the Switch first came out. It was either Disgaea 4 or 5, one of those that basically came, like they had a version released very early on in the Switch life. And when the Switch, believe it or not, people, but when the Switch first came out in 2018, there wasn't much to play on it.
2018?
I said 2018, didn't I? Or did I say 16?
Yeah, I swear the Switch was 16, wasn't it? You said 18. Paula said 19.
Is it 16?
I'm thinking 16.
I said 17.
17, 2017. When the Switch
I'm
came
almost
out,
certain it's
whenever it came out, I think it's
in the year that it released.
I think Paula's right in that it's probably 2017. Probably March.
I'm
2017.
almost certain it's 16.
It's 2017. It's March 3rd, 2017. Yeah.
I would stake nothing on it. Is what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You
were
staking. Go ahead. Sorry, yeah, not 2018. But anyway, when it came out in 2017, well, for that first year, actually, there wasn't that much on the thing. This is before, because I mean, context-wise, too, the Wii U was shite, and so no one was porting games to the Nintendo. Like, everyone was like, all right, Nintendo, whatever. And then once it was like, oh fuck, this thing's popular, then everything came on. And so I tried Disgaea, and I could not. There's a lot, and I feel like this is one of those tactic type strategy games that, like, you gotta spend a good portion of your life to get good at this game and to understand.
It depends what your objective is. Like, if you want to bum rush the story and like dip your toe in the complexities, you absolutely can. Now the item world, which is where like the bulk of that content is, because you can level up all the items to level 9999 as well. That's the mad thing. By doing battles inside the item in the item world. That's something that I think was only introduced in the DS version. The DS version actually adds loads. So there's like the geo panel system, which I think persists into later games. That was a DS release edition. That wasn't in the original PS2 version of the game. But yeah, you're right. It's to quote a famous Ogun, that game is like an onion. It has layers.
Exactly. God damn.
Yep.
This is actually funny. So one that's literally gathering dust. Because I got it home from when I went home to English. Anyway, I was in English for a while, but when I went home, my home's not there. But anyway, when I went home, I had a lot of 360 games in like 2 giant like Rubbermaid containers full of 360 like GameCube, like Wii games and stuff, but mostly 360 games because I looked at my collection of 360 games and there was probably over like 150 at least. Like there were a lot of them there. I have a lot of 360 games. I have most of that catalog. No, that's not true. It's like thousands, but I have a lot of them. I have a lot. And there's one game that I've bought and that I have always meant to play. And it has been staring at me and I have it now under my console. And that's Blue Dragon, which I don't know if you'll know this one. Yeah. So Blue Dragon was a JRPG. It's Akira Toriyama art style. I don't think it's that good. I think it's like an okay RPG. But
it scored like 70s.
Yeah, 70s or so, like that, right? Also, understand this was like I think it's an exclusive to the 360. Yeah, which I'm sure is also why the scores weren't so great. Because like the 360 at the time didn't have many JRPGs. Although I would say Lost Odyssey is like fucking one of the best RPGs out there. And
the mad thing is, just a slight tangent before you carry on,
Mm-hmm.
I'm borrowing an Xbox at the moment. There are 2 games I want to play on it because I don't care about the Gears of Forza's Master Chief editions. Like the only 2 Xbox exclusive games I want to play are Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey.
Really?
And you could name drop them both. Yeah, it's mad.
I have 2 copies sitting here with me now. Blue Dragon and Enslaved Odyssey to the West. Those are the 2 that I have to play.
That's on PC now, though. So
yeah, that's true. But I got the 360 one, so it's like sitting under there. Yeah, I don't know. Blue Dragon, I really want to play it. Like, I love the art style. I think it looks really fun. And it's just like, I've just never got myself to do it, you know? Because, like, it's a 46-hour game, right? Like, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, shit, man, there's so many long games out there. Like, I should really just play the really good ones. But then at the same time, I can't bring it to just like put it on that retired. I'm like, come on, Alex, you spent $5 on this discount game. You should play it. There's so anyway, that's the one that for me has been gathering the most dust, and I'm just like, I got to get to that game at some point. What about you, Paula?
And fun fact, just before we tag Paula in, if you do love it, there are 2 DS exclusive spin-offs.
Yeah. What are they called?
I think one of them's like an actual RPG and one of them's like an RTS game.
I think one of them was a sequel because there's Blue Dragon Awakened Soul and then Blue Dragon Plus.
Plus is the sequel.
Yeah.
That's the RPG, and then Awakened Shadow is, I believe, an RTS.
And it's shorter too. Actually, it says tactical role playing, so maybe it is like that. But anyway, it's like Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like a 15-hour game, so I'd be into that. Anyway, I don't know. I
Well,
love
that's getting on my R4 card.
Yeah, there you go. And Awakened Shadow. So I guess it's also a series. I guess I haven't jumped into.
There you go.
Is an RPG. Interesting. So yeah, the sequel is the tactics one, and then there's anyway.
Paula.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide where to start because I could pretty much start.
Isn't that just the problem? Oh,
Yeah, like I could really like just start like from the Japanese imports because there are so many of those that have been gathering dust for a while. Like the whole Utano Prince-sama like series of Otome games is just there. And I recently just learned that there's actual like transcript/translations of a couple of the games, so might as well start there. But one series that I've been really wanting to get to is the Adrian Odyssey series because
that's on my list as well. What
Yeah,
the fuck?
Well,
This
you
is
two
a
have
funny
RPG
story.
similarities. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a funny story because I actually learned about the Persona series from Persona Q. That was my first Persona game.
Interesting.
But also, I really like how the dungeon crawling on that game was done because you make the map. And then I learned about this game called Etrian Odyssey that pretty much had the same system. And I was like, oh, I want to play that. And then I got like the remake of 1 and 2. I got 4. I like Pokemon Mystery Dungeons, so I got the Atrian Mystery Dungeon game.
You did, okay.
They are there. I haven't touched any of them. And I can't get a copy of Atrian Odyssey 3 because it is expensive as sin, so I might as well use another 4.
Yeah, or skip it because it's the only one that didn't get a proper like port or remake, and it's also like supposedly fundamentally broken.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that like thunder is an element that you need literally against 2 enemies, and one of them is incredibly rare. So it's like there's no point speccing into that, and there's various other problems with it. But the mad thing is just how prolific that series is. Like on 3DS alone, there is Etrian Odyssey 4, which is the only one that I've played to date. Is excellent. Is also supposedly a really good starting off point. There's Etrian Odyssey 5. There's remakes of Etrian Odysseys 1 and 2 from the DS.
You have
there's
Nexus
Persona
there.
Q and Persona Q2, and then there's Etrian Odyssey Nexus, which is like the swan song of the series and the 3DS.
And then you have another funny story as in like Etrian Odyssey was, if I remember correctly, like how the story goes, was probably like one of the first like RPGs like to really hit it big on the DS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from there, Atlus went and made a Strange Journey, and I have a Strange Journey Redux there, not Redux. Redux on my backlog because I think I got to like halfway through and suddenly it stopped playing, and I tried to pick it up again, but I didn't remember where I was. I knew there were like some very useful demons in my party, one of them with luster candy, but I was so out of the story, out of the whole experience that I was like, okay, I need to restart this one. And I feel like in general, like very complex RPGs where you have to like remember a lot of the mechanics or how you play generally, you can't really take a break from those because then you're like me and you don't remember why you did anything in the first place.
I know, Jesus. You know,
and in a case of real serendipity, I got into Shin Megami Tensei with Strange Journey.
Ooh.
Yeah, time before I ever even touched Etrian Odyssey. Anyway, sorry, Alex, you're going to say something there.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, you're making me think of like, because I was trying to think to myself, I was like, are there actually any series that I'm like really want to like get into? And like, I've dipped my feet into some. Like, I tried Danganronpa, bounced off pretty quick. It just, for some reason, it wasn't clicking with me, even though I like Ace Attorney and everything. For some reason, it just, So like, I do kind of want to go there, but like, I don't know. But one that I really do want to get into, and is Mega Man Battle Network, the GBA games.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I fucking love card-based anything, and like they're technically not card-based, it's battle chip. But they're cards, right?
It's totally different, Alex.
Yeah, it's totally different. And like it's the grid format, right? And like I just think
Yeah.
that grid format and stuff, like it's such an interesting concept. And like after seeing those games, there's even apparently like a multiplayer like resurgence of it now. Like there's a competitive scene has started.
I watched the video on it. Yeah,
yeah. You
madness.
see that video? I was like, that's amazing. Yeah. So I don't know. I've always loved the idea of those games, and so like I really want to get into them, but I just haven't found a chance to like jump in yet. Like it's like every time that I want to start, I'm like, I got other things I could play, and it's also like there's something about, and they're not even that long. It's like 14 hours the first one, but there's something about that like series are so daunting, right? Like I started Yakuza and I finished the first one, but now the rest of them stare at me like Yakuza Kiwami just is sitting on my Xbox like, you gonna play me, bitch? And I'm like, no, because there's so many of you. And you're like,
well, the shout for Battle Network, there's an indie game that's basically like Mega Man, the legally distinct Battle Network spin-off called One Step from Eden.
Oh really?
And then you obviate the series situation. It's like the best of everything because it literally released a year ago, so it's like up to date shit. So there you go.
I also just like the Mega Man part of it, though. You know what I mean? So like, whatever.
I know
what you're saying. Yeah, but yeah, you're like, who gives a shit? Shantae was another one too that I want to get into, but I started the Game Boy Color when it left a bad taste in my mouth. But I know the rest are much better and much different, so I will get to them. I will.
Yeah.
What about
one day?
Oh yeah, Paula. Mm-hmm.
Another series that I kind of like was getting into, but I did a strange journey with that one as well, was Xenoblade Chronicles, because I started playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But then Paula went away, like I got too deep into like the gacha system of the game. Because you can just farm cores forever, and I was like looking for a specific play who, fuck me if I remember which one it was.
Of course.
And I think out of the 50 hours I played of that game, 20 are probably gacha. But also like I was really having fun with the combat system, of how complex it can be. But then I watched a Check Roy video like when I wanted to get back into the game, and it was like things you must know before you play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or something along those lines. And I realized like I've been playing like the game like wrong in the sense of the blades having these category of like tank attacker and stuff like that, and they really aren't like separately like in a good way. Like some of the best attackers in the game are classified as tanks, but the only thing that makes like the classification matter is the hell items you can give each blade, or like the stuff you can put on their pouch. So I don't know, they do stuff with that. And I'm like, it seems I really didn't know this game like very well. I wonder what would happen if I restarted the game and actually play like I'm supposed to be playing. Like,
no.
I really like to break like RPGs and stuff like that, like ramp up the numbers to see how much can I exploit this thing. So that's why I end up with Luster Candy and Debilitator and Strange Journey. So I'm not really in the mood of restarting Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I've also heard that the Xenoblade games like kind of like start adding elements on each game. So if you want to start easy, you start with the first one, which is now available on Switch. Then you go with X, and then you go with 2, because mechanically they progress mechanically.
Yeah.
So I want to get that experience. So I pretty much dropped Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to someday start Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
Yeah. And Sorry,
that's a series I want to get into like so bad, but there's always something else like popping up.
Oh, that's our lives.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I did exactly that with Xenoblade. I've got like 20 hours in the Wii release. And then I picked up the 3DS release thinking, oh, yeah, I'll play it now that I've got it on a handheld. Obviously, it looks like someone's chewed up cereal and spat it back out on the screen, which isn't ideal.
You pulled a
and
Paula
then they were like, oh, yeah, we're going to... And then they're like, oh, yeah, it's coming out on Switch. It's like, fuck. So I'm probably going to buy it a third time now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already bought that one twice because I also got the 3DS version.
It's aspirational, you know? I will play this game.
It runs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too.
The way you said that just reminded me of the Great Ace Attorney commercial because the main character was like, I will become an attorney, or I will do this thing. I have to.
Nice. Well, I will happily take a comparison to them any day. One thing I want to ask, because I like this last one we have here, is games that you haven't been able to attain a copy of that you want to play. And I have one here that, like, look, I can play it, but I really want a fucking copy of Ghost Trick. I want one so bad. And they're like $300 fucking dollars. Yeah, you son of a bitch. Yeah, I know. There's
whoa. This is going to hurt you even more. I got my copy for £8 from an Asda.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Back in the day, yeah. There's like I've never ever seen a copy of Ghost Trick in my time in Canada. I have yet to see a copy of it. Now, obviously, I'm not like scouring too much, but there just isn't one. It's like all on eBay for like $230 or something. Now, Japan ones are way cheaper, but like, what if I'm gonna get it and just what's the point of that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna have to drop the ROM on something anyway, and like, you know what I mean? So like, I know I'm gonna have to play it on like on a hacked 3DS at some point, but I just irrationally want a copy of Ghost Trick because it looks so amazing.
I totally get that.
Right?
Like, Ghost Trick is it is a DS game, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Have you not played it, Paula?
I have not played it, but
I
remember someone recommended
love
it to
Ghost
me.
Trick. Ghost Trick is so your kind of game.
Yeah.
You need to prioritize playing Ghost Trick. It's amazing.
Yeah, like if I pull up eBay right now and like I look at it like right away. Okay, so maybe not, but like it's $181, right? For
That's
a complete
terrific,
box. Yeah, you know, and like even like the new factory seals are like $230. Like there's none that are short of that. Even like someone's selling a pre-owned one, not even in the box, for $180, and like, you know what I mean? Like
God.
that's how expensive
aspirational.
It is. Yeah, that is.
That is aspirational.
And like anyway, so it's just Ghost Trick is just because it didn't sell well, right? So there aren't many copies in existence, and for the most part, I think people who bought that game really liked that game, so they're not getting rid of it. You know?
It's really good. Yeah, it's the interesting thing with the idea of like games that you haven't been able to get a copy of is since emulation became a thing, that's just not much of an issue. So like all of the ones I would have said, like Drill Dozer, I managed to track down a cartridge. That's what I was looking for years.
Same.
Suikoden Tiakris, if I'm saying that the right way, which is like a DS spin-off. I managed to find, I think it might even actually be a European copy, but I managed to find it for like just above MSRP a couple of years ago on eBay. Lost Odyssey, which is a game that like I didn't have the hardware to run for a long time. I managed to get the game for £4 once I'd got the Xbox.
Xbox 360
and I still need
games
to
are so cheap.
Yeah, well, I thought that one being the kind of game that it is and not being sort of a commercial hit as far as I'm aware, I thought it might be a bit trickier to get a hold of, especially because it hasn't been re-released anywhere. But there's loads of copies floating around and super cheap too. And then like even games where I haven't got a physical copy, like there's a quartet of like PS2 games from way back when that I wanted to get but never got around to getting. So God Hand, Grim Grimoire, Shinobi, and Siphon Filter the Omega Strain. I've got them on the emulator. It's Grim Grimoire especially is a nightmare to get a hold of, like in box with the manual and everything else. But the internet's a lovely place, and people put scans of all kinds of documents online, so it's all hunky dory.
Yeah, I'm thinking like one of the games that I want to really like get a hold of is Okamiden.
Again, I have that one.
I mean, it isn't like too like crazy expensive. It's just that I haven't like made up my mind to just buy the thing instead of like whatever something is like coming out. Or like when I have like the money, something happens and then I don't have money.
Yeah.
And then
So-
a GBA SP appears in your
yeah.
post. Weird how that happens.
No, it's just that sometimes when you're from Chile or any like Latin American country, import fees just hit you like a truck out of
Yeah.
nowhere. So that has happened to me like more than once. So it's like, okay, I guess my plans for getting whatever, I don't know, all DS game have changed. Let's leave it at that.
Sorry, I wanted to jump back because I was curious about Lost Odyssey because you mentioned the sales thing. It actually did pretty well. Like, I mean, obviously
Really?
no like crazy breakthrough thing, but like and again, listen, this is relative because the 360 obviously didn't sell very well like in Japan, but it did become the 9th best selling game for the 360 in Japan, and like it sold about 900,000-ish copies, which look, I know that's not a ton, but like for a game of its size, it did pretty
100%.
well. You know, and like it debuted pretty well, like to the point where Microsoft, like they were thinking about turning it into a series because like how well it did in Japan as well. They were like, maybe we could do this. So like, you know, it did pretty good. And Famitsu gave it like, it got a 9, like in Famitsu, like it was like, it received quite well. So anyway, that's the thing where it's like, I feel like Lost Odyssey, because it was a 360 exclusive, people are like, couldn't have done that well. But like, that's also why I think it did well, because me, like, think about the time I wasn't playing JRPGs at all, 360, and then this thing came out and I was like, what is this thing? And I tried it and I got into JRPGs again, so it was a huge one. Anyway, sorry, we'll jump back into what we were saying there.
To be fair, I think Paula was just finishing making a very sad point, and then I was just thinking, what other ones are there to maybe dip into?
Oh yeah, that might have been it then. Well, why don't we move on then, anyway?
Okay, I had one quick one
Rick.
that I just want to drop before we move on, and that is a little obscure game. This has been a very DS-centric discussion, I find. Infinite Space.
Oh,
Are either of you familiar with that one?
Yeah, that rings a
Infinite
bell.
what?
Infinite Space. So it's a Platinum Games developed space combat RPG published by Sega for the Nintendo DS back in like 2008, 2009. And this is a chunky game. The core combat revolves around this kind of rock, paper, scissors sort of game of chicken moving your fleets of ships back and forth. But then there's also like a proper story behind it. There's a fleet building mechanic. It's got one of those things where you like have to fit all the modules into the shape of the ship and you move them all around with a touchscreen kind of thing. It's a nutso game. And again, another one, because at the time when the DS was around, all the big chain supermarkets were like picking up every DS game that they could find, and they wouldn't keep them for long because they wanted to just churn through the inventory. So the DS games at the time were going for £30 like retail, and like 3 weeks after release I got this game for like 15 because they were like, okay, we just want to get this off the shelves. And I was like, I will help you do that. And it's a game I've tried to start a couple of times and just never quite gotten enough into to be properly into. So it's sat on the backlog and as one that I will get back to eventually, kind of thing.
Nice. Well, there we go.
Anything else, or should we jump onto the
let's move along because we going along.
Like most of my games are like just series that are like in my backlog that I haven't get to, but I eventually will.
And then we'll hear
never
about them.
will. Yeah.
or not. Never mind.
We're moving on, Paula.
Yeah. Well, we've got a question from.
What was that?
No, I don't know what that was. Rick's just had a lot of like shots and misses today. Oh, sorry, that was a squeak. All right. Anyway, we have a question from Nalv this week. So Nalv asks, do you prefer to time yourself or use the in-game timer to calculate your time? If you time yourself, do you pause for resets and time away from the game, i.e. loop breaks? I'll start just by saying I aspirationally would like to time myself. I don't. It's just the way my gaming happens. It's in such fits and spurts. Like, it is just like, can I get 10 minutes in here? Great, I'll get 10 minutes in here. But I really like to use the in-game timers. I usually assume from an in-game timer that it's probably off by probably 2 hours or so, at least, most of the time. I've just noticed that in general, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? It doesn't always necessarily tabulate everything, like an hour or so by then. But on the Switch, I like to use the parental controls app because they don't have a timer. But if you get the parental controls app, the app tells you how long you've been playing, and it tells you by game. So and by day. So I use that to calculate all my time. So I know my Switch times are quite accurate.
3DS has that as well, which is also super useful.
The 3DS is great. But things like the PlayStation, really rough. Like, it's just such hit or miss if they have something. Xbox is getting a bit better now. They have I've been noticing it's hit or miss on that too. Some games, they'll have the progress tab. It'll tell you that how much you have. And if you sync it with GOG, you can tell as well. But others don't. So I don't know. I kind of rely on that. I'm just not fastidious enough to do that. But I don't know. What about y'all?
I'm guesstimation city. I have to be honest. So if it's an in-game timer, I'll go for that. Steam, Epic are pretty good because they give you a time. Steam, it's to the closest 6 minutes. Yeah. Epic, it's more or less an accurate time. For anything that doesn't have inbuilt timing and the game doesn't have a timer of its own, I will generally sort of look for the clock when I started playing, look at the clock when I ended, and guesstimate down from that if I took breaks to make food, if I've been to the toilet, if I've been on my phone for a bit in the middle of that, and I'll just sort of fudge the numbers. And to be fair, that sounds not quite how I mean it, but I've been doing this long enough that I get the times down reasonably close.
Yes,
I'm not a novice in the video game timing and completing space.
Well, exactly. You get to a point
that came out bad.
That's funny. No, I get what you're saying. You get to a point where you play a game and after you're finished, you're yep, that was about 4 hours. You know what I mean? You just
you've got a good feel for it.
Yeah. And I can also think to myself, how many sessions did I have? Oh, I played that 4 times for 2 hours each. Okay, I know what I did. You know what I mean? I can kind of remember that pretty easily now because also my gaming time, like I said, it's kind of in fits and spurts, and that's mostly for the handhelds, but it's also fairly regimented, right? I get to play a lot of games. That's because I really focus my time when I play them. You know what I mean? I'm doing so much other shit throughout the day, and I've got so much work to do that I got to focus in. What about you, Paula?
I'm a maniac.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, but what about timing your games?
Okay. Come on, Rick.
There, you nailed it.
So I use the Switch Parental app for whatever Nintendo Switch game I'm playing. I use the timer on the 3DS whenever I'm playing that. As for other games, I use the Steam estimate for whatever I'm playing over there. So wherever I have an accurate timer, I will use that.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna go use an actual stopwatch.
Nice.
I'm pretty much nail it to the minute or sometimes second, sometimes. And the thing is that for very short spurs of gaming, I usually have my my Switch out or or any game with a timer, so I don't have to worry about that. For the games that I do have to worry about that, and I don't have the website on or anything like that to input the time once I'm done playing, I use my my little journal, and I use a sticky note, and I put the sticky note on the game I'm playing, and just take it away once I recorded the time. So I don't know. I'm a maniac. I like to be very precise when measuring anything. I guess it's the laboratory rat that I have in me.
Well, also, aren't you doing programming and whatnot? I don't want to become a video game developer. I mean, these are probably good qualities that you're very much.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. There are good qualities.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, also something to say too, like even when I look at like how long to beat, right? Like the times there, like I actually think the more useful times is when you like scroll down and see the like average, median, rushed, leisure, right? Like that to me is the most useful because I actually often find that like these days I tend to be on like the rushed side of things. Particularly if it's like a game like Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, right? Like I finished it pretty quick, but then I go to look in at like times and I'm like, right, okay, that's because I'm like boom, 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 going through. But you know,
yeah, like you did with 13 Sentinels, like you shaved a third of the time off just being like, bop, 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 bop.
Yep, because I just read through it right fast, right? You know, it's just that's kind of how it goes. So, nice. Well, there you go, folks. That's how we do it. It's a bit scattershot, and it changes with every console and every handheld.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I will say, God damn it, consoles, just give us system timers even. Just tell us how long we've been playing a game for. I want to know.
The dumb thing is Sony track it. They did like a Christmas thing, like a New Year's celebration last year. And it was like, oh, you can log in and we'll tell you some of the times a bit if you've done enough playing and like are eligible for it, which for whatever reason I couldn't get it to work. It's like, well, if you're tracking that, why would you not let me see it?
Right? Just let me see it. Anyway.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's that. Let's move on to how long to beat the game. Let's see what we're playing this week. Oh, interesting. Thief Gold.
Thief?
Okay, God, I haven't got the first fucking
so
clue.
it's Thief, but it's called Thief Gold. So
Oh.
I assume that's by Eidos. I assume this is just like the more complete version of Thief, I would guess.
Yeah.
I'm taking a look at the Steam wiki right now.
Yeah, Steam. Yeah, Thief Gold, $7.
I'm going 8 hours main, 10 hours main plus,
So
14 hours 100%. Bosh, bosh. I haven't got a clue. That's what I'm going with.
It's the definitive version of Thief: The Dark Project.
Or in fact, you know what? I'm going to add 3 hours to every time. So I'm going 11 hours, 13 hours, 17 hours.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know how much you do on like in these games. Like, how long are these?
That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question. That is very much the question.
They are stealth games. That's all I know.
Yeah, they're stealth. Remember that. I think they were like the first like real big stealth games, weren't they? Like in terms of like that really kind of broke through in like the 3D environment.
Sounds right. I'm not certain, but it sounds right. They certainly predate Sam Fisher.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna go because I also don't know. Maybe I want to just like buckle on with you and
Cute.
And try not to like that way. If you lose, I lose, vice versa.
Oh, look who's playing the tactical game. Interesting.
I'm trying to think what sounds reasonable, but I got nothing. I still feel this is like on the shorter side, but not too short because I saw that Thief Gold has like 4 extra missions or like extra missions in general. So
yeah.
Detective.
Okay, I'm gonna go 12 hours. Do I want to take that half an hour for the thing?
Oh my god, no, you don't.
But what is 100% for this game? Is it like, is there any kind of collectibles you get?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going 13 hours, 15 hours, 19 hours. I think it's a little bit longer, I feel like, but I'm not super confident. I'm not very
interesting.
What I feel is that the first 2 times are gonna be like fairly close together, but the third time is gonna be like a little bit more. But I don't know like how much more. So maybe I just want to leave it like at. Do I want to leave it at 16 hours or do I want to go with 17? I'll go with 16 hours. Okay.
You know what? Okay.
So
no, you know what? Because this is I'm gonna go 15 hours.
Ooh.
I'm gonna Hail Mary. Because like these are, remember we did this with Lara Croft, we did this with fucking Tomb Raider, where we were like, it's a short damn game because it's old, and then we got shat on hard because we realized no, it's not.
Yeah, albeit that was a puzzle platformer.
But this is a stealth game. It's all about being slow and sneaky.
No, you know
well,
what?
I'm going with.
No, wait.
I'm bouncing up. I'm going 15 hours, 22 hours, 26 hours.
I'm gonna give it like a little bit more on that last time. Maybe like.
Join me, Rick. Join me.
I'm getting there.
The
I'm getting
18.
there.
I also just don't want to be alone.
As it stands, I've got main 14, main plus 16, 100% 22. Alex has got main 15, main plus 22, 100% 27. And Paula's got main 12, main plus 14 and a half, 100% 18. Oh, and she's made a main 12 and a half as well. Okay.
Yep.
Are we all locked in?
I'm ready.
Yep.
Let's find out.
Okie dokie.
Moment of truth. Okay, main story is 20 hours.
I'm gonna.
Main plus
Oh,
extra.
no, Alex,
It's okay. Don't worry. Main plus extra, 26 and a half hours. Which seems pretty good so far. But completionist is 36 and a half hours.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
So close. I don't know. I just had a feeling.
Crikey.
Like, you know, completionist on this. Yep. It's a big game. These are big games. These older games are big freaking games, man. 1999. They just, I don't know, they made them big. Anyway, that's it for this week. No points for us. The standings remain the same. 76 for Rick, 74 for me, and 65 for Paula. Came close.
Yeah. So that Switch OLED's still up for grabs. Anyone could get it.
Anybody at all. We'll see y'all next week. Toodles.
Take it easy.
Bye.